She was 7 months pregnant, carrying plates she had no business lifting, wearing a smile she had no business holding. And the most dangerous man in Seoul stood frozen at the entrance, unable to remember how to breathe. The black SUV stopped in front of a restaurant called Mirai, a mid-range Korean dining spot squeezed between a laundromat and a convenience store in the Mapo district. The kind of place Kim So's shoes cost more than the monthly rent of. He hadn't chosen it. His lieutenant, Baek, had. Owner owes us. Back room is clean. Nobody asks questions. Kim. So had nodded without caring. He moved through most of his days like that now. Nodding, deciding, executing, never feeling. Feeling had stopped being useful to him the day he signed the divorce papers. He stepped out of the car, buttoning his jacket. 2 bodyguards flanked him. The street hushed the way streets did when Kim So walked through them. Not because people saw anything specific, but because power had a frequency, and his ran at a pitch that made instincts tighten without explanation. Inside, the restaurant was warm and smelled of doenjang jjigae and fried garlic. Soft lighting, modest crowd. A hostess bowed and moved to lead him to the private room. He was 3 steps in when he stopped. Not because of the crowd, not because of a threat, because of a laugh. Low and genuine and slightly exhausted. The kind of laugh that lives in the throat of someone who is tired but refuses to be beaten. A laugh he had heard in the dark of a bedroom 2 years ago. A laugh he had told himself he had forgotten. He turned. She had her back to him. Natural hair pinned up, just a few curls loose at her neck. Uniform slightly stretched across her middle. She was balancing 2 bowls on one arm and pointing something out on a menu with her free hand, talking to an elderly couple who were clearly delighted by her. 7 months, maybe more. The number landed in his chest like a blade. Favour. Beck said something at his elbow. A bodyguard shifted. Kim So did not move. He stood in the middle of Mirai restaurant on a Wednesday evening and felt, for the first time in 18 months, something he had no name for and no wall strong enough to stop. Before we go further, have you ever watched someone you once loved from a distance, carrying pain you caused and felt completely powerless? Drop a comment, let's talk. He followed her, not with a plan, not with words prepared. Kim. So, the man who walked into rooms having already calculated every exit, every angle, every possible outcome, followed a pregnant woman into a restaurant hallway with absolutely nothing in his hands but the wreckage of a decision he had made 18 months ago. She came through the kitchen doors balancing an empty tray and nearly walked into his chest. She stopped. The tray didn't fall. Her hands held it steady. That was Favour. She held things. Even when the weight was killing her, she held things. Her eyes found his face and something moved through them fast. Shock, pain, then nothing. She locked it all behind a wall so quickly it almost made him flinch. Kim. So, just his name. Flat, like she was reading it off a document. You're working here. He said it like an idiot and knew it immediately. Yes? She stepped around him, high-heading to the service counter. Your private room is down the hall. Beck knows the way. Favour, I'm working. She set the tray down without looking at him, started organizing receipts, hands busy, eyes anywhere but his face. How long? 3 months. Where are you living? She finally turned, and he wished with everything in him that she hadn't. Because her face was the same face he had memorized, and also completely different. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before. A tiredness that went deeper than one bad night. But she was still standing like she owned the ground beneath her. Still looking at him like she could see straight through every wall he'd ever built. I'm fine, Kim So. Go close your deal. He looked at her stomach. He couldn't stop himself. She watched him look. She didn't explain. I didn't offer anything, just waited. The way she had always waited for him to catch up to what she already knew. "Is it mine?" he asked. The question hit the air between them like something that couldn't be taken back. She picked up her tray. "Go to your meeting." She walked back onto the restaurant floor. And Kim. So stood in that hallway, the most feared man in Seoul with no power, no strategy, and no idea what to do next. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Kim So sat at the head of the private room table with his face arranged into the expression his organization expected. Calm, sharp, slightly dangerous. The look that said everything is under control. Nothing was under control. Beck outlined a territory conflict in the south. Kim So approved 2 decisions and redirected a third. He declined to deal with a Busan crew whose numbers didn't add up. He gave clean, precise instructions that would untangle 3 different problems by morning. And the entire time, one part of his mind was standing in a hallway watching Favour walk away from him. He had left her. That was the truth he spent most of his energy not looking at directly. 18 months ago, he had decided, coldly, logically, completely, that Favour's life would be longer without him in it. His world was violent. His enemies were not subtle. The people closest to him had a habit of becoming targets. He had constructed that argument like a fortress, brick by brick. And then he had been devastating about the ending because halfway would have been worse. Signed the papers, moved her accounts, told himself she would heal. He had not healed. He wrapped up the meeting at 9:30. The restaurant was thinning, a few late tables finishing dessert. He walked to the bar, sat down, and ordered water. He was not leaving. Favour came out of the kitchen at 10. She moved slower now. The shift was wearing on her body. He watched her press a hand briefly to her lower back between tables, and felt something cold move through his chest. She saw him at the bar. Her expression closed like a door shutting. She came to him because ignoring him would have been too obvious. "You're still here." "I'm still here." "Kitchen closes in 15 minutes." "I can wait." She studied him with those steady eyes. "Why?" "Because I need to talk to you." "You had 18 months to talk to me." No heat, no drama, just fact, delivered clean. "You chose silence." "Whatever you need to say can wait another 18 months. She moved to refill a customer's water at the end of the bar. Kim. So sat quietly and let her go. Because Favour did not respond to pressure, she never had. She responded to truth, and truth was something he had been dangerously out of practice with. She came back to the bar when the last table cleared, leaned against her side of it, arms crossed loosely above her belly, looking at him with an expression he couldn't decode, which was unusual because Kim So could read most people in under 10 seconds. Favour had always been the exception. "You want to know if it's yours?" she said. "Yes." "Why does it matter? You were very clear about what you wanted." "I made a decision I thought was right." He held her gaze. "I'm not sure it was." "That's not an answer." "It's the most honest thing I know how to say right now." She was quiet. The restaurant hummed softly around them. Someone laughed outside. A bus passed the window. The whole world kept moving at its ordinary pace while Kim So sat completely still and waited for a woman he had broken to decide if he deserved anything at all. "Yes," Favour said finally. "It's yours." He didn't speak. Couldn't. Something had seized in his chest. A mechanism he had no name for, and it needed a moment to reset. She watched it happen to his face. Her own expression shifted. Not soft, exactly, but real. "I tried to call you," she said. "When I found out, you'd changed your number." "Security measure. I didn't think..." He stopped. There was no version of this that didn't make him sound exactly as careless as he had been. "I didn't think." "No," she said quietly. "You didn't." The kitchen staff began closing down. Favour untied her apron, folded it neatly, said goodnight to the manager, and pulled on her coat with the careful, practiced movements of someone managing significant discomfort while refusing to show it. Kim. So watched her button it closed and felt something move through him. Not the clean, cold calculation he ran on. Something older. Something he recognized from 6 years ago. From the first time he ever saw her at a business function and crossed a room without a plan. Just move toward her the way you move toward a window when a room gets too small. "Let me take you home," he said. Favour looked at him. Really looked. You don't get to show up after 18 months and start making decisions. Her voice was steady. "That's not how this works." She walked out. He followed, at a distance. She was at the bus stop when he caught up. Not chasing, just arriving beside her, under the shelter like it was the most natural thing. She looked at him, then looked away down the empty road. "You can't do this, Kim So. I'm not doing anything. You're standing at my bus stop." "You're at my bus stop." She stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled through her nose, the sound of someone choosing not to fight a battle they're too tired for. "I built something after you." Her voice was low, private, like she was saying it more for herself than for him. "It's not much. A waitressing job and a small apartment and a plan held together with hope. But it's mine. And I won't go back to being someone who waits around to find out what her life is going to be based on whatever you decide. I don't want that either. You say that now. I mean it now." She turned to look at him. Her eyes were steady but not cold. There was something in them that was working very hard not to soften. "You're someone who makes decisions alone and then expects the world to adjust. I lived inside that, Kim So. I know exactly what it feels like to be an afterthought dressed up as a priority." He was quiet, because she was not wrong. He had done that, made the decision to leave her like it was a business move, calculated the risk, executed the exit, never once considered that love wasn't something you could manage like a balance sheet. The next morning he found out everything. Not his intelligence team had her file on his desk by 9. Every detail of the last 18 months. She had left his house the same day she signed the papers, refused to stay somewhere that felt like charity, found a small apartment, rebuilt her freelance work from scratch. Then 3 of her biggest contracts quietly disappeared. When he traced them, they led back to one name, his mother, Madam Kim. He sat with that information for a long time. His mother had been thorough and deliberate and had done it while he was looking the other way. And Favour had survived it. Alone, pregnant, never asking for help. Because she had too much pride and no one left to ask. Right now, I need to ask you something. If the person you loved most caused you pain without even knowing it, would you tell them? Or carry it alone? Comment below. Your answer matters. He went back to Mirai every evening she worked. Not always at the bar. Sometimes he took a table, ordered food, sat like an ordinary man having dinner. Which he was not. But he was trying to be something she could tolerate being near. And that required patience, which was not a muscle he had ever trained. She checked on his table the way she checked on all her tables. Professional, composed. But gradually, small things. "The baby kicked all afternoon," she said one evening, refilling his water without being asked. "She's been restless since yesterday." He filed that away like it was sacred. Another night. "There's a cafe near my apartment that makes the kind of tea my grandmother used to make. I walked past it this morning and just..." She paused, shook her head slightly. "It ambushed me." He received every fragment with the care of someone handling something that might be taken back at any moment. After 2 weeks, she let him walk her to the bus stop, without the performance of him waiting outside first. They would simply leave together, sometimes talking, sometimes not. One cold evening, rain came sudden and hard. She had a small umbrella. The wind made it useless. Kim So appeared beside her with a larger one and said nothing. She looked at his car idling at the curb. "Fine," she said. "Just home." In the back seat, the city moved past in smears of wet light. They sat close but not touching. The silence was different from before. Not hostile, not careful. Just two people existing in the same space. She fell asleep before they reached her building. She had always done that. In the middle of conversations, she would simply be gone. Her head finding the nearest surface with total trust that the world would hold her. He had loved that about her with a fierceness that had confused him then and destroyed him after. He didn't wake her, sat still for 2 minutes while Beck waited, then said quietly, "Favour, we're here." She woke instantly, sat up straight. "Sorry." "Don't be." She gathered herself to leave, then turned back and looked at him in the low light. "Thank you," she said, just that. "Thank you for letting me," he said back. She went inside. He sat in the car and felt something in his chest that he hadn't felt in 18 months. Something that felt dangerously like hope. It happened on a Tuesday. Kim. So had been managing a crisis in the South. A rival network called the Doe Crew had hit one of his operations, all hospitalized 2 of his men, and left a message that required a response. He had spent the day running cold and efficient and completely inside his work mind. By evening, the situation was contained. By night, he had mapped 3 responses they hadn't anticipated. At 10:30, his phone lit up, a number he had only recently restored. "Favour, can you come? Something's wrong." He was moving before he finished reading. He arrived to find her on her couch, coat still on, hands very still in her lap, wearing the controlled expression of someone who was fighting panic and winning. Barely. "I had a fall," she said before he could speak. "On the steps outside, someone bumped into me. I caught the railing. I didn't go down hard. But I've had cramping since, and I can't tell if..." She stopped. I didn't know who else to call." He was already on the phone with his doctor. At the clinic, he sat in the hallway with his hands clasped and tried to function. He was acutely aware of being on the wrong side of a door, of 2 people being out of his reach, of having absolutely no control over the only thing that mattered. The doctor came out. "Baby is fine, she's fine. Muscle strain from the railing catch, 2 days rest." He breathed. When he went in, Favour was on the examination table, still in her coat, staring at the ceiling. When she heard him, she turned. The controlled look was gone. She just looked tired and frightened and like she needed someone to stay. He pulled the chair to her side and sat down. "You're okay," he said. "I know." Smaller than usual, he put his hand over hers. She didn't pull away. After a moment, her fingers turned and held on. They sat like that while the city ran its business outside the window. "I told myself I wasn't going to call you," she said quietly. "I spent a long time training myself not to reach for you." "You can reach for me." "You made it so I couldn't." "I know." The words cost him something. "I'm sorry. I made myself unreachable when you needed someone to reach for. That's on me." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said yet. He stayed that night. He told himself he would leave once she slept. He made tea. The kind she liked. The exact ratio she had never told him, but that he had paid attention to. And brought it with a small footstool so she wouldn't have to put her feet on the cold floor. She watched him arrange these things. "You can go," she said. "I'm fine." "I know you're fine." He sat in the chair across from her. I'm staying anyway. She didn't argue, drank her tea, let him stay. He fell asleep in the chair somewhere around 2 in the morning. When he woke, gray light was coming through the curtains and Favour was sitting up on the couch watching him. She had made coffee. He could smell it. They sat in her small kitchen in the early morning. Him in yesterday's suit, her in an old robe he recognized from their marriage. And the city woke up below them, and it felt, for a few fragile minutes, like something that used to exist and had never fully died. I'm scared, she said, hands around her mug. I've been trying not to be. Being scared doesn't pay rent or buy baby clothes, so I just keep moving. But it's there, every night. I'm scared of doing this alone. You don't have to. Words, Kim So. I know. You make decisions alone. You execute alone. You've been that way since I met you, and I loved you anyway. But I can't build a life inside someone else's silence again. I won't. He set his mug down, looked at her directly. Tell me what you need. Not what you needed before. What you need now. I'll listen. She looked at him for a long time. Be honest with me. Not strategic. Not managed. When something is happening in your world, tell me. Don't protect me by disappearing. Yes. Don't make decisions about us without me. Yes. And if you're going to be in this baby's life, be in it. Present. Not just providing. Yes. He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. All of that. Yes. She looked at their hands, then up at him. Oh, you're not running, she said. I'm not running. She nodded slowly, and for the first time since he had walked back into her life, she let herself believe him. Their daughter arrived on a Thursday night, 4 days before the due date. Kim. So was at the apartment when Favour's labor started, which she later said was the one time she was genuinely grateful for his stubborn refusal to stop showing up. In the car, she gripped the door handle and breathed. He drove and said nothing. Sometimes the most useful thing a person can do is be present without filling the space. He was in the room. He had asked once at the hospital entrance, "Do you still want me here?" Because the question needed to be asked, she had looked at him mid-contraction with an expression that very clearly meant, "Do not ask me things right now." And he had taken her hand and stayed silent for the next 11 hours. Their daughter arrived furious, small and perfect and deeply unimpressed with the world she had just entered. She announced her displeasure at length and volume. The nurse placed her in Favour's arms first, and which was right, and Favour looked at her daughter with an expression Kim So had to look away from because it was too much to see directly. Then Favour looked up at him. "Come here," she said. He came. He looked at his daughter. She had stopped crying. She looked back at him with the absolute seriousness of someone who had just arrived and was still deciding whether to trust the place. Then her tiny fingers found his and held on. Something in Kim. So, something that had been built wrong for a very long time quietly corrected itself. "She has your mouth," Favour said. "She has your eyes." "We'll see." He looked at Favour. She was exhausted and extraordinary, and looking at him with nothing hidden between them anymore. "I love you," he said. Not performed. Not strategic. Just true. She held his gaze. "I know." Her voice was soft. "I need a little more time." "You have it," he said. "All of it." 3 months later, he asked her properly. Sat across from her on a Saturday afternoon, their daughter asleep in the corner, winter light through the windows, and said plainly, "I want to be your husband again. Not because of her. Because of you. Because I choose you, Favour. Every version of you." She looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at their daughter. Then she looked back at him and said, "Okay, let's build something real this time." He exhaled for what felt like the first time in 2 years. Outside, Seoul carried on, indifferent and bright. But inside that small apartment, something broken had finished being rebuilt. Not the same as before. Better, chosen, honest, and this time, permanent. If this story moved you, I want to know. What part hit you hardest? The fall? The birth? The moment she finally said yes? Tell me in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear a story about love that fights its way back, share this with them right now. They need it.